Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Crystal, and in today's video I will be updating this antique drop side table. This little table is pretty rough condition. It had been repaired before. There's a lot of broken parts and pieces. The whole top is basically just broken and split. So I am going to completely remove the drop sides altogether for this piece. For this piece, I will be doing a paint wash technique with no pre-mixing with water. I highly recommend watching the whole process with the repairs and the prep work, but if you want to skip ahead and go directly to the paint washing, you can go to the 4-minute 45 mark of this video. I'm starting off by removing the entire top of this table. There was actually part of it was broken and was still attached to the hinged area of the drop side table, so I removed the hinges so that way I could glue that part of the table back together. From the previous repairs, there was a lot of wood glue that was just dried, and I needed to scrape that all off because I am going to be painting this and I wanted a nice clean look. So painting over that dried glue was not an option for me. I think it just looks sloppy and unprofessional, so it's always best to remove things like that. I'm using my favorite brand wood glue, which is Gorilla Wood Glue, and I'm gluing that broken piece back onto the tabletop. And I'm off camera, I used some ratchet straps and some bungee cords to hold it together and keep everything really tight while it dried. The top had a lot of cracks and splits, so to fill those, I'm using a product called Plastic Wood. It's not my favorite product, but it's what I had on hand. I started off sanding with a 120 grit paper, but it was not cutting through the old finish, so I did switch to a 60 grit, which this piece is completely solid wood. It can definitely handle a lower grit sandpaper, but it does rough up the surface quite a bit. So afterwards, I do go back and I go through the grits. So after my 60, I sand with an 80 grit and then a 120 grit to smooth out the surface. I have really done a lot of paint washes, and I found it's not always necessary to pre-mix your paint with water. What I like to do is mist my surface down with my mister bottle, and I get the whole thing completely wet. Then with a small amount of paint on my paintbrush, I will apply my paint. If my paint is too thick, then I will mist my paint. And I just keep doing this process until my whole entire surface is covered, making sure to keep my brush strokes straight and not curved. For this project, I am using a Waverly brand chalk paint in the color Cashew, but I have used many different types of chalk paints, and I have also used latex paint for this technique. In my opinion, this creates less waste. When I was pre-mixing my paint with water, I always found I had a lot of leftover paint wash mixture. Pre-mixing your paint works very well, but I always feel like there's so much paint wash left over as you can't always judge how much you're going to need for a project. So I'm just trying to show you guys that there is another way to do paint washing. In my videos, I always do my best to try and describe the process, but if you have any questions, I'd love to hear them down in the comments, and I will definitely do my best to answer them. Basically, I am just watering my paint down on my surface versus pre-mixing my paint with water. If my surface gets dry before I am able to apply my paint, I like to mist it, or if it seems like the paint is not spreading out good, I just give it a mist of water. And again, I am using very little paint. For this project, I believe I only used what was on the inside of the cap after I shook the paint bottle up, or maybe just a tad more. You can definitely add more paint if you want more of an opaque look, or you could do a second coat even. Hopefully that all makes sense and it doesn't just sound like I'm rambling on. On any piece that I have an edge like this one, when I paint across the edge, it always leaves a brush stroke going the opposite direction of the wood grain. So simply to fix that, I just go over it in the correct direction of the wood grain, and that will remove the brush strokes of the paint that are going in the opposite direction, if that makes sense. I use the same color Cashew to paint the whole base. This is a Waverly brand, and I did 2 coats. I'm using a clear brushing lacquer in a satin finish. I like to thin my lacquer down with a little bit of lacquer thinner. I usually just add a splash to my lacquer in a disposable mixing container, like a cottage cheese container or something like that. I feel like this just makes it a little bit easier to brush the lacquer on. Lacquer is an extremely durable product. I really love it. It's an oil-based finish, but it is extremely caustic, and I highly recommend using any type of PPE while using it. Most definitely a respirator mask. And then for the base, I am just using a matte varnish from the Waverly brand and a foam brush to apply that to the legs and the base. And then finally, I am just adding that tap back on with the screws. And then I take a high grit sandpaper, a 200 grit, I believe is what I use, and then I'm going to lightly sand the top to just smooth it out a little bit more. And then I just use some water and a cloth to remove the sanding dust. And that is pretty much it, you guys. Let's have a quick look at the before we see the final reveal. It was dirty and gross and just super broken everywhere. Lots of really bad repairs to this really beautiful, updated, neutral, small kitchen nook table. I really love it. I love doing paint washes. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts and questions. And I hope this video has earned your subscription today. Thanks again, you guys, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye.